Hello everyone. My name is Cameron, or you can call me by my Chinese name, Camelong. If you've been here before, then welcome back to my channel. If you are new, then welcome. If you've seen any of my previous videos, then you'll immediately notice that this is very much different from my other videos. It's not like the typical cinematic vlog style videos that I like to do. To be honest, I just wanted to try something a little bit different today from my typical style video and see what you guys think of it ultimately. For those of you who don't know, I actually live in the mega city of Chengdu, China. So today I want to talk to you guys, not exactly why I moved to China. I actually have another video where I talk about that a little bit. You can see a clip of that right here, which you can find on my channel. Today I actually want to talk about why it is that I chose Chengdu over some of the other popular cities that foreigners like to choose to move to in China, such as Beijing or Shanghai. And hopefully this video can bring you some insight if you are somebody who's, maybe curious about moving abroad or moving to China, or honestly even just traveling here to get a good sense of, what Chengdu's about. Okay, number one, you guys are gonna like this one, cost of living. For Chengdu being still such a big city in China, measured against other cities, it is shocking how much more affordable the cost of living is here compared to somewhere like Beijing or especially Shanghai. Okay, so to give you guys an exact idea of the cost of living here, it's so crazy, you're honestly gonna think that I'm just making things up. But for the 3-bedroom apartment that I live in, it's near the outskirts of the city, but still within the city. It costs 3,300 RMB, which is equivalent to $650 Canadian or $450 USD a month. Wow. Even just saying it out loud, it just blows my mind still, especially when I compare it to back home in Toronto. I think this building was built in maybe 2022, so it's a nice building. It's new, it has central heating, which a lot of places in Chengdu doesn't. But that's a different video for a different day. I would definitely like to give you guys an apartment tour to give you an idea of what it's like to live in a place like this for such an affordable price. I mean, beyond affordable. But you will not get the same thing for the same price in Beijing or Shanghai. So in Shanghai, I believe rent prices are about 3.5 times higher than in Chengdu. So that would make this 3-bedroom condo in Shanghai approximately 11,550 RMB a month or $1,600 USD. That is a crazy big difference, and I think for a lot of people, that would be a deal breaker for sure. It was for me. So while 1,600 USD back home in Toronto is actually like unheard of for a 3-bedroom apartment, that would be an absolute steal. When you're living in China and you compare that to what you can get in Chengdu and still achieve that same or similar mega city type of environment, to me it almost feels like a no-brainer, especially if you're coming to China with the intent on saving money. Yeah, it's a huge difference. Okay, so rent is definitely the biggest difference. It's like a 250% difference between both cities. Overall, Shanghai is about 30% more expensive than everything else in Chengdu, which includes things such as gym memberships, entertainment, groceries, restaurants, coffee, all that kind of stuff. And the overall cost of living difference between Chengdu and Beijing is pretty much the same as Shanghai. It's a 30% difference overall. Rent is a little cheaper than it is in Shanghai, but still significantly more expensive than Chengdu. And that is usually the cost of living cost that adds up more than anything else. Okay, number 2. This one's a little bit more personal, but Chengdu's proximity to Chongqing. Now, why would I choose Chengdu just because it's close to Chongqing? Well, to be honest, Chongqing was actually one of my other top picks of cities I wanted to move to in China. And it is also the home city of my girlfriend, Lu. So if Chongqing was one of my top picks and it was also Lu's hometown / home city, why would I have chosen Chengdu over that? Well, we traveled to China back in April of last year, so April 2024, and that was my first time in China. And honestly, when I visited Chongqing and Chengdu, I ultimately fell in love with both cities. But as much as I love Chongqing and I love the energy there, I noticed that Chengdu is definitely, I'd say, more of like a slower paced city. And I think because of that, I saw it as a way of kind of easing into living here in China, because China is very, I would say, intense as a foreigner, especially, you know, some of the bigger cities. If you don't speak the language, and just along with a lot of the culture shocks, it can be a very intense experience. And I found that Chongqing felt a little bit more intense, which again, I do love that. But you know, as a way to ease into living here, I think I needed something a bit more slower paced so that I can kind of take my time adjusting to the way of life here. And also the great thing about Chengdu is it's really close to Chongqing. So, you know, by moving here, we still have the opportunity to go to Chongqing all the time. Lou can go visit her friends and family quite easily. I can tag along with her if I want to. You know, easily take a weekend trip out there, which we've done multiple times. We spent New Year's there as well. It takes about 2 hours by bullet train to get there. So yeah, really, really close, really convenient to get there. But again, I want to make it clear, I love both cities. You know, Chongqing is definitely not off my list of places that I would like to live in. I think, you know, once I've kind of eased into living in China a little bit more, I would definitely love to move to Chongqing. Okay, now number 3, Chengdu's slow pace of life and overall lifestyle. So within China, Chengdu actually has the reputation of having a slower paced lifestyle, and a lot more relaxed compared to some of the other fast-paced cities like Shanghai or Beijing. First of all, you can really see this reflected in the environment in Chengdu. What I mean by that is there's a lot of green space, there's a lot of outdoor facilities, you know, such as like sporting spaces like basketball courts or tennis courts. Even cycling trails and paths, things like that. You know, when you think, I guess China, like nightlife style, you think, people going out to like bars and clubs and, KTV. While those things do exist in Chengdu, I think a lot of people here might opt for some of those more outdoor activities. So you can really say that slow-paced lifestyle in Chengdu is closely tied to this, let's call it an outdoor culture. An example of this outdoor culture that you would immediately notice coming to Chengdu is Chengdu's tea culture. There's a lot of tea houses here. There's a lot of outdoor parks where you just see tons of people just chilling, having conversation, drinking tea, maybe playing cards, playing mahjong, just really kind of enjoying those small moments. And don't get me wrong, things here, especially as a foreigner, can still feel pretty fast-paced and pretty intense. But I think that more so comes from the overall culture shock of moving to China. And this comes from just, I think, the sheer amount of people compared to back home in Toronto. And traffic can be a lot more crazier, things can feel maybe a bit more congested and dense. But I'm really getting used to those things. But overall, it's still a lot more slow paced when you compare it to the other larger cities in China. Okay, number 4 is the weather. So this one's a little bit more straightforward and not as detailed as some of my other points, but really it comes down to Chengdu just having a good balance, I guess, overall with its weather. Its winters aren't as harsh and intense as Beijing, and its summers may not be as hot and humid as Shanghai. So the winter here, it can still feel cold, but it's kind of more in a different way. It's like a damp cold. And a lot of the apartments and condos here don't have central heating, so it can get quite cold inside of your apartment. So I feel pretty lucky that our condo has central heating, which has helped a lot. But overall, the winter is really not that bad, especially when you compare it to the more northern cities, such as Beijing. And from my understanding, Shanghai can be more hot and humid, or it generally is. But I mean, Chengdu still feels pretty darn hot and humid in the summer. But as far as I know, it's not as intense as it might be in some southern cities. But to be completely honest with you, I would say one negative aspect of the weather and climate here is it's mostly cloudy. And that I think has a lot to do with it being at maybe a higher elevation. I'm not quite sure. It's quite similar to Chongqing in that aspect, Chongqing being a mountain city. There's just lots of clouds. It's usually overcast. But that's not to say that it's never sunny. There are definitely still frequently sunny days, just maybe not as much as there would be in other cities. But it really does kind of make those sunny days feel a bit more special because you don't get them as often as you might somewhere like Shanghai or Beijing. So if you ever do decide to move to Chengdu, just make sure to always have vitamin D on hand and take that consistently, especially during the winter. Okay, last but not least, number 5, Sichuan food. Now, this one's really gonna depend on if you like spicy food or not. If you don't like spicy food, I mean, Chengdu might not be the city for you. Chengdu is really known for its Sichuan cuisine, which is the province that Chengdu is in, which contains a lot of chili spice, and as they call it, ma. Ma is a type of spice that tastes more numbing. It's a really weird thing to explain if you haven't had it before, but essentially it's a spice that numbs your mouth. That's the best way I can put it. But for me, Sichuan food is one of my most favorite cuisines in the entire world, so it was a pretty easy choice to move to Chengdu or Chongqing. In Chengdu, you're gonna find lots of things like hot pot, chuan chuan, which is like a skewer that you have inside of like a oil broth spicy base. You're gonna have spicy noodles like dan dan mian, which is excellent. And also, just overall, in a lot of their dishes, they like to use this mala, which is that numbing and chili spice kind of combined together. That's generally what you're gonna get in most Chengdu dishes. That's not to say though that you can't find other types of food here. Of course you can. It's a big city. You can find some international food here. You can find food from other provinces in China. So there are options, but overall the palate here is mostly spicy and that mala spice that I was talking about. So yeah, it mostly comes down to personal preference. If you don't like spicy food, then yeah, maybe you'll have a bit more of a difficult time here. But honestly, you can still ask for less spice on a lot of your dishes, and not everything has spice. There's a lot of options that aren't spicy, so you'll still be fine. But if you're like me and love spicy food, you're gonna have one hell of a time here. There are plenty and plenty of options here for you. And you also have Chongqing nearby, which is kind of in a field of its own when it comes to spicy food. In my personal opinion, I think the food there is even spicier than in Chengdu. So if you're up to a challenge, you got Chongqing close by. Okay, so just to recap, number 1, we have cost of living. Number 2, Chengdu's proximity to Chongqing. Number 3, the overall slower pace of life and overall lifestyle. Number 4 is the weather and climate. And number 5 is Sichuan cuisine. Out of all these points, I would say the 2 biggest ones that really influenced my decision would definitely be the cost of living, and as well as Chengdu's proximity to Chongqing. Again, because Lu's friends and family are there, so it's kind of I guess a good compromise between what we wanted when moving here. But you guys might have different reasons as to why you would want to come here. But cost of living, if that doesn't convince you enough, then I don't know what else will. But honestly, just like Sichuan cuisine, it really comes down to personal preference, what you like, what you figure out through your research. You know, you might find some other city in China that you connect with a little bit better. If you traveled here, then you'll have seen firsthand what you might like more. Yeah, it's really personal preference, and Chengdu just so happened to work out really well for me. So yeah, that leads me to just asking you guys, if you were to move to China, which city would you want to move to and why? Please leave those comments down below, and if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know if you'd like more like these. And if you're new to my channel again, please check out my other vlog style videos. You might find some enjoyment in those. There's still plenty of more of those on the way. And if you guys like this style of video, then I will definitely have more of these as well on the way. So yeah, I guess I just want to say take care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.